Vahini, the message of meditation from Bhagwan Sri Sathya Sai Baba. Chapter 1, The Power of Meditation, Binding Actions and Liberating Actions. Human beings do a lot of karma, which can be broadly divided into 1. Sensory or binding actions, Visaya karmas, and 2. Actions that liberate, Shreya karmas. Binding actions results in sorrow and confusion, whereas Shreya karmas yield progressive joy and auspiciousness, Atma Ananda. Visaya karmas desire for results that lead to I and mine, and lust as well as greed. The Visaya, sense objects, creates Visha, poison in our life. But when one is involved in Visaya karmas without any expectations, they are free of those karmas. Liberating action is pure, faultless, unselfish, and unswerving. This gives truth, righteousness, peace, and love, Satya, Dharma, Shanti, and Prema. So, offer everything to the Lord without any desire for the result. That indeed yields full joy. That is indeed the easiest. It is difficult to act against Dharma and untruth. It is easy to walk with Dharma and truth. The best means for following liberating actions is meditation, Dhyana, taming the mind and the intelligence. People behave in two ways, one inside and one outside. People get worried for minor troubles and obstacles in family. Bhagwan says, a cart can move only by bullocks tied to them. But if they have been only around the post tied to them, then they can't do the journey and the cart faces the danger. Similarly, the inner consciousness, Antahakarana, requires the intelligence, Buddhi, and mind, Manas, to move. So the bullocks, intelligence, and mind should be conversant with the road to the destiny that the inner senses are eager to reach. If the draught animals have no knowledge of the pathways of truth, righteousness, peace, and love, that is Satya, Dharma, Shanti, and Prema, then they take the inner senses to grief. Even if they are prodded to proceed, they will only drag the cart to the familiar post and the accustomed mire of confusion, injustice, cruelty, indiscipline, and falsehood. Then, how the journey can proceed? How can we reach our destination? So, intelligence and mind have to be taught the art of pulling the cart and move steadily along the road. This has to be done by repetition of Lord's name, japa, and meditation, that is dhyana. One pointedness and concentration. People are suffering despair and defeat on account of the waywardness and unsteadiness of the inner senses. People are endowed with unlimited powers, but the road is missed when one is unaware of this truth. To gain awareness of this power, one must join the company of the holy. One must strive in spiritual practice, that is sadhana, and one must practice repetition of the divine name and meditation. The mind flies at a tangent all the time. Meditation, dhyana, is the process by which it is trained to acquire concentration. As a result of meditation on the highest Atma, Paramatma, the mind will withdraw from sense objects and the sensory world. Just at that time, the intellect, Buddhi, must assert its authority and command the mind, that is Manas, not to entertain any feeling except the thought of the fundamental basis. When its basic truth is known, the mind will not be deluded by the evanescent, the untrue, and the unblissful. Instead, it will welcome the blossoming of joy, happiness, and truth, and it will not be affected by sorrow and grief. One's life also assumes a new splendor when one visualizes and realizes bliss in the awareness of supreme reality, Satchidananda, through a mind and intellect, manas and buddhi, that is purified and transformed by means of meditation, dhyana. Therefore, begin meditation, each one of you, from today, even from this moment. Meditation should be performed enthusiastically with full faith and care, and strictly according to the discipline laid down. If this is done, it will bestow not only happiness and victory but even the vision of the Lord. If people desire to transform their lives, internal as well as external, into one of the splendor, meditation is the best spiritual discipline, that is the sadhana that one can adopt. Chapter 2, Chanting God's Name and Meditation. Spiritual aspirants, sadhaks, all over the world will naturally be engaged in repetition of the name japa and meditation. But what is the purpose of repeating the name and meditation? Without this knowledge, one gets deluded in the objective world, satisfying worldly desires and hope to demonstrate their values by means of sensory gains. This is a grave error. Repetition of God's name and meditation acquires one pointed attention on the Lord, casting off sensory attachments, and for attaining the joy derived from the basis of all sensory objects. The mind wanders in all directions indiscriminately like a fly, which goes to a sweetmeat shop and rubbish carts one after the other. Teaching it to remain with the sweetmeat shop is called meditation. A bee only settles on flower filled with nectar and never visits foul places. Likewise, we need to give up all inclination towards sensory attraction, which is untrue and impermanent. One has to direct the mind to all holy things which yield sweetness and the joy associated with the Lord. The time required to achieve this depends on one's thought, word, and deed, as well as on the motives that impel those actions. The basic motive behind one's prayer is an important measure, such as the degree of patience, one pointedness for God regardless of happy and sorrowness in life, and constant attention to oneself during meditation. Getting rid of the idea of self is the real gauge towards the progress made. Japa and dhyana are to be judged by inner effects which has strong relationship with Atma. It should not be compared to the temporal world. To realize the transformation towards Atmic bliss, one should not count the cost, the time, or the trouble encountered. One should continuously do the austerity, tapas, of meditation, awaiting descents of God's grace. The three paths of meditation. Swami reveals the three margas. They are 1. The pure, serene, sattvic path. A person on this path considers japa and meditation as a duty and suffers any trouble for its sake. He is fully convinced that world is just an illusion and he tries to do all good under all times. He desires good of all, loves all, devotes time in constant remembrance of God, does not craves for fruit of japa and dhyana, and leaves all to God. The second path is the passionate, restless, rajasic path. In this path, a person only craves fruit of one's act every step. If fruit is unavailable, then gradually laxity and disgust overpowers the mind. His sadhana slowly dries up. The third path, the ignorant tamasic path. Here, a person thinks of God only when he is in danger, acute suffering, or when he faces loss or pain. At such time, the person prays and worships, offers food to God, builds temple, prostrates, circumambulate temples, and asks rewards to God. Most worldly people follow the last two categories, whereas only the serene sattvic meditation is best, which helps in understanding Atman. He in whom the understanding shines is called a sage or rishi. The knower of Atma becomes Atman itself. Brahmavid Brahmaiva Bhavati. The goal of life is to understand the Atma, the basis of the individual soul, that is, Jiva. The need for bodily and mental training. There is a close mutual relationship between the attitudes of the body and the attitude of the mind. So, people's inner feelings will be evident from their physical bodies. The stance and the appearance of the body help us to discover these feelings. Take one example. With a villain look, it is not possible to exhibit love or devotion. Similarly, with yogic posture, it is not possible to show one's anger or hatred or cruelty. That's why the ancient sages used to tell the spiritual aspirant that it is necessary during prayer and meditation to adopt the appropriate bodily pose. They saw that it is possible to control the waywardness of the mind by this means. Until the goal of meditation is achieved, the well established discipline of sitting postures, asanas, has to be followed. The curriculum has to be adhered till then. After the mind, manas, and the intellect, buddhi, have been conquered and brought under control, one can meditate wherever he likes. The pure and serene meditation is the best. Through meditation, people reach the divine experience of realizing the Atma within themselves. Through meditation, spiritual aspirants are able to cast off sheaths of ignorance layer after layer. They withdraw their sense perceptions from contact with worldly objective experiences. The process that aims at this holy consummation deserves to be called meditation. For this process, one must be equipped with good habits, discipline, and high ideals. One must be full of renunciation towards worldly things and their attractions. Whatever the situation, one should conduct oneself with enthusiasm and joy. The most fatal body ailment can be prevented by regular little dosage of drugs. Similarly, troubles and tribulations can be avoided by regularly following the path of meditation. Everyone has the right to achieve this high degree of success. I do not say this in just a quiet tone. I declare this loud enough for all quarters to hear. Knowing this, meditate and advance. Do meditation and progress. Realize the Atma.